Hey everyone, we're just seeing a lot of people rolling in, so we might give it a minute or two. But certainly glad all of you could join us today and taking the time. I really appreciate it. We're excited about this topic. This is actually very near and dear to I think both Colin and I's hearts, so we're excited.
For sure, for sure. We'll see how many AI attendees we end up getting. It's so funny to watch those start to pop in. All of these
So
note
true.
takers that how many MSPs are no longer, there's one. How many of them are no longer attending webinars, not even waiting for the recording? They just send their AI agents to attend them, notarize things, and get to read the quick form summaries after.
Yeah, you'd think they would maybe all talk to each other and save the computing power, just share the notes amongst each
Right?
other.
Just hey, send those to me when you're done. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Oh,
All
amazing.
right. All right. Okay. Um, this webinar is being recorded. As you guys notice, we're going to be sending out the recording after the fact. Our man Levi, which is hidden off camera right now, he'll be doing that. We'll also be sending, obviously, any action items from the chat. I would say, we want to make this a very participative webinar, so please feel free to ask all of your questions in the chat. We're going to try to keep this to about 30 minutes. That's when I start losing my voice, and probably you guys get sick and tired of hearing from me, certainly. Uh, and then we'll take some questions. But yeah, feel free to reach out to both of us. I believe on the last slide, we also put in our personal information. If not, then we're going to put that in the chat so you can reach out to either of us if you're interested. Um, but yeah, feel free to ask any questions you might have. And if it's anything that we can't or we don't have time to discuss, we're definitely going to take that offline. Okay, well, Colin, why don't we get started and then people can keep joining. Colin, why don't you introduce yourself? I think everybody on this call probably knows you. You've been around longer than me, I think, in the MSP channel. Probably no introduction needed, but
And it's been a while now. Yeah, this is I think we just entered my 22nd year in the managed services space. So
oof.
have sat in your shoes, attended more webinars than I care to admit as an MSP, but worked for a couple, ended up starting my own, built and grew that. I sold that business and then jumped onto the vendor side as a cybersecurity vendor, founded the company Passportal, which sold to what is now known as Enable. So there's a bit of a tie there between myself and Derek, but yeah, I've been in the managed services space for a long time, been around the block, and currently co-founder and CEO of Gradient MSP.
That's awesome. Thanks for that. And for those of you that don't know me, I'm Derek Belair. I'm the co-founder and CEO here at Augmentt. I'm almost embarrassed to say how much how much time Colin and I have in the MSP space. I started to enable day one of that company back in 2000, which is crazy because I think we have lots of
Right,
employees that were born then, were born after that time, and I was in the MSP space. Um,
right.
yeah, I worked there until we sold to SolarWinds. Then I went over to the SolarWinds side, and that's where Colin and I had some overlap. And then the founder and then CEO of Enable, Gavin Garbett, he and I had been really good friends along these years. We decided to start Augmentt. And I think that Colin and I, have a real shared vision in the MSP space, and I think it'll be pretty apparent in this webinar. So very, very happy to be doing this with him.
Dare we say half century of mistakes and lessons learned?
It's incredible. And I'm still learning things
Jeez,
every day. I'm amazed by the stuff I've never heard of, the stuff that I hear. So obviously
right?
I think that more time I spend in this space, the more humbled I am by how amazing it is and how amazing the people in
Absolutely,
it are.
absolutely.
Cool. Well, let's go to the next slide and why don't we kick this off?
Yeah.
So a bit of an agenda. Again, what we want to talk about is the Microsoft billing problem. This is not new to any of you. I think you guys are all feeling it day in and day out. It might be a bigger problem for some of you or not, but it's just a challenge. Colin and I have always been on a mission to help MSPs. I should go back one slide. We've always been on a bit of a mission to help MSPs make more money in the space. I think any vendor in the space, that's their mission in life is to really help you guys make or save as much money as possible. And so we want to talk about that from a Microsoft perspective. We want to talk about licensing. And Gradient is doing some amazing stuff in this space specifically to help you guys. We're super excited to be working working with them. So that'll really be the topic of conversation. So in the chat, if you guys have questions regarding Microsoft billing, either products, billing questions in general, licensing questions in general, those are all things that between the two of us, we've got lots of experience and expertise, and we'd love to help out.
Yeah,
Cool.
absolutely.
All right. So next slide. Colin, I'll let you maybe address this
All
one.
right.
You're very close to this.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I think it's interesting. We're, just over 5 years into Gradient doing billing reconciliation and helping MSPs out with it. And we knew for a long time that we need to do something with Microsoft, but I'd say that we were maybe a bit more ignorant than we might care to admit at just how bad the issue was with Microsoft, right? We knew that, hey, a lot of you resellers are working with a distributor, whether that's Pax8 or TD or somebody like that. And there's already some type of integration for reconciling that stuff and everything else. And we kind of just expected that, hey, that stuff's handled. And it wasn't until we started we actually offer a managed billing service for MSPs who just want to completely offload it. And it wasn't until our team started doing the Microsoft stuff and the back checking and actually looking through it that we realized this is a massive problem. And for anybody that's on this call that has seen or dealt with or worked through a Microsoft dump or even their distributor or CSP's dump of usage, oh my gosh, what a nightmare. And it's this whole disconnected system now where you've got data and information that Microsoft reports from usage and renewals and terms and license assignments and assigned users and everything else like that. And then you have your CSP, which, maybe a show of hands of who's buying direct versus through CSP. I know the October 1st changes made a big difference in that if you weren't doing $1 million in trailing 12 months revenue with Microsoft directly, well, guess what? You weren't going direct anymore. So now you were forced to go through a master CSP or distributor or marketplace type thing. And, that just now further separated your data for how many licenses have you bought? How many, what are you paying for those licenses? What's going on with them? Like all of these things, your renewal dates, everything else, all disparate. And then you're trying to pull all of this stuff together and look at your billing system, probably your PSA, right? You have your agreements in there, and now it's, man, what are all of these different lines? Some of them are annual commits paid annually. Some of them are annual commits paid monthly. Some of it's monthly paid monthly. And you've got all these different types of subscriptions, types and flavors of different licenses strewn all over the place that pretty much makes it impossible to be able to get that control and actually know what's out there, know what's being used, and most importantly, be getting paid for the licenses that your customers have committed to, right? So yeah, we kind of pulled together some stuff. I mean, we've done work with Augmentt. We've now pulled some stuff together directly with Microsoft and the CSPs of mass popularity amongst MSPs. And yeah, just it's this big compounded issue where one MSP we worked with, I was telling Derek about this just the other day, is they started working with Gradient initially because they had done an audit and found that they had $1 million, big business, but $1 million in Microsoft licensing that they hadn't been billing for the previous year. Now they couldn't just go back and recollect that and do that. That was going to be a nightmare. So they had done a full audit, thought, hey, this is handled. Let's work with Gradient and be good to get going again and make sure that this doesn't happen. Well, in the first couple of months, we found 633 more licenses. And I forget when we did that math, it was about 170-ish thousand dollars in annual revenue that was still just being missed. But it's not their fault. It's because of how messy and disconnected all of these systems have been.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. I'll tell you, when I said at the beginning that I'm always, humbled by the stuff I'm learning, I'm always amazed. Colin and I live and breathe Microsoft pretty much all day, every day. We love these guys, but I'll tell you how difficult they make a lot of MSPs' lives is crazy. And I'm always fascinated to hear about, some of the problems that you guys are experiencing with things that really shouldn't be a problem. Like billing should be the
Yeah.
least of the least of the problem, right? But it's challenging. I guess thank God that there's problems and people like us to fix it. But yeah, it's crazy.
I'll say if it wasn't for companies like Microsoft and how challenging they can make things or imperfectly, nobody in attendance or on this webinar would have a job right now because You know, Windows has its issues, Microsoft Office has its issues. That's why MSPs are out there and able to make the money they do. And
Yeah.
just keeps Microsoft just creates opportunity for everybody, right?
Well said. We will go to the next slide. So yeah, just kind of going on what Colin was saying, we find that as a business owner, and I do this all the time. I'm sure all of you do this all the time. You're always looking for ways to grow your business, generate more revenue, but also looking at the expenses. You're always trying to take a look at where you can save, where are the easy wins. Where's the leaky faucet that if you turn off, you add just a bit more money to the bottom line. And we find that, paying for unused licenses is just one of those things. We're constantly in our business, we're constantly looking at the plethora of tools that we use. And, are we using all of the licenses? Are people assigned to those licenses? Are they actually using these things? Is it the right license type? And we find that every time we do a review like that, it always yields, positive results. It's never negative. Anytime you do this, you're always going to save. You're always going to find. So paying for unused licenses, it's just one of those things where it just erodes those margins, right? It just erodes all the hard work you did in trying to grow your business, grow your revenue. It just sucks all of that revenue away. We find that what's also bad is not billing for licenses that are being used. You've got customers, they're assigned the licenses, but for some reason, because of the reconciliation of the billing, you're just not paying for it. Missing renewals is a tough one. Like that's brutal. The renewals are all over the place. It's very, very hard to look at. Price increases is another one. That's a super easy one, right? Like the price goes up, but you're not reflecting that in the billing. And it really just all comes down to margins. Like at the end of the day, for us and for all of you, what you want to do is all the hard work you did in selling those licenses and getting them deployed and getting them configured and getting them used. You want to build what's accurate, and that is really, really, really tough to do. Colin, I mean, you deal with that all day. I'm sure. I'm sure you can echo that.
Yeah. I think a couple things here, right? The bottom bullet point, the fact that all of this stuff is manual for most MSPs today, right? You have arguably the most resold product in the world, in the industry. I want to say they're nearing, or maybe they've already topped over 500,000 resellers and partners for M365. Yet, when you're looking to reconcile your billing all manually, you're taking exports, data dumps, trying to review through all of these rows of every single license and subscription and agreement that you've ever had, even all the expired ones, everything else. So you're doing some Excel foo to try to adjust that stuff. You've got trying to track your unused licenses again in this world where, as of October 1st, of so few months ago, you're going through a CSP. Well, now you've got different places to look, right? You don't even know what's assigned when you're looking at your CSP. You now have to log into Microsoft, see what's assigned versus what's not, how that aligns, who the assigned users are, is there resources in, right? Like, so all of that extra work and effort. And then you compound with the reality that you might be making the same amount of money. You might be, generating the right amount of revenue because hey, you're using something like Augmentt to stay on top of license assignments and usage and who's been logging in and who's active and all of that stuff. You might be using a tool like Gradient to, do the quick comparisons and make sure that you're using all the right stuff. The next issue is those price increases. We've seen partners that have different subscriptions and different licenses within the same end customer who, because of term renewals and everything like that, have certain licenses that have had a price bump, and that just gets completely missed. So now, yeah, you might be generating the same amount of revenue, but your margin just eroded, right? So you're actually not bringing home the amount of money that you should be bringing home at the end of the month because you weren't staying on top of that. And that's the other big spot, is watching and staying on top of that cost reconciliation part of it, so that, hey, downstream, if I'm to be making 15, 20, 30% margin on these things, that I'm able to easily and accurately bump that end user price to reflect what the price increase was from Microsoft.
Well, look at the bottom, right under the post-it note on the previous slide.
Mm-hmm.
If you take a look, like 10 licenses, like a lot of our customers have, thousands of licensed Microsoft users under management that they're working on. 10 licenses is nothing. And, it's 2,600 bucks a year. It pays for a tool like this, just in
Yeah.
those licenses. Like it's absolutely phenomenal. I've never seen an MSP that says, hand to God, I bill for everything, 100% accurate, everything is being used, everything is licensed. Like it just doesn't happen. And I think you can get away with it by saying, okay, well, maybe it's a few, but at least do the work to find out exactly how many there are and how much money, because
Well,
it's
and
staggering.
that's on Microsoft. So we see across the whole stack,
Exactly.
right? And we connect with everything. The average MSP is underbilling by 5 to 10% of their total revenue, right?
Jesus.
Now, Microsoft can stand to be a big part of that because it's probably one of, if not the only thing that every single one of your end customers is buying from you, right? We all know that, hey, you try to do all inclusive, you try to push the whole stack. Microsoft is the one steady thing that lives across all of it. So you have the highest chance that you're missing the most licenses there in your billing.
Yep. Great point. So maybe what I'll do is I'll talk a bit maybe about sorry, I'll let Colin talk a little bit about the margin protection, and then maybe I can talk a little bit about the expansion side. So it's kind of a 1-2 punch.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've already sold these services, you're already delivering them, you've provisioned them, everything's out there. It's time to make sure that you're getting paid and paid the right amount for it, right? So what we've gone and done, and I think on a future slide here, there's a bit of a screen that shows some of it, but we've built these integrations now. So on one hand, we've got an integration with Augmentt that, hey, we can pull some of your Microsoft utilization and client Microsoft utilization through Augmentt to help reconcile your billing and stay on top of that. But when it gets to even what Derek's going to talk more about with these value add services, you can actually now collect counts for your Augmentt licensing for your end customers as well to then reconcile billing for whatever Microsoft value add services you deliver stacked on top of that. So that's kind of one point. The next is our Microsoft reconciliation add-on that we've done, where we now kind of do this three-way integration where we connect to your CSP, so PAX 8, TD Synnex, Ingram Micro. We connect to your Microsoft account as well, direct for that, which is the partner of record account. And then we connect that to your PSA. And we do this three-way reconciliation that makes sure that we understand everything that's built across and being deployed across Microsoft, compare that to your CSP of record that you're using for that, give you that full contextual view across understanding, hey, what are the licenses, what are the renewals, what's the price and cost that you're paying for all of those things, to bring everything into a single point of view for you to then be able to easily update your PSA, not go cross-eyed, not get lost in exports, not only have half of the information available to you or context, but bring that all together, making sure that you're making all the margin that you should be when prices go up, make sure that you're catching all of the subscriptions, and have some of those nice renewal little warnings in there as well for, hey, I want to be checking an Augmentt to see how many licenses aren't in active utilization that we could clip off on that renewal.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I'd like to take credit for that graphic that's there, but I got to hand that over to Colin and his team. They dug up this little beauty, and I absolutely love it. I've used it a bunch of times already. But this is how Microsoft, when they look at their top accounts, when they look at big MSPs, this is the type of service add-on for every dollar that these guys spend with Microsoft. So, anywhere between 8.45 to about $11 of services for every $1 of Microsoft product. And I would say that I would challenge, everybody on this call to just, maybe get off this call at some point and then just go back and just do some back of the napkin and take a look at your last couple of Microsoft bill and see if you're actually anywhere close to these numbers. And in our base, I've actually called a bunch of our big partners, and a lot of them are in the $7 to maybe $8 range. And again, this isn't just one solution. Like this is everything that they charge to the customer. So it includes, the security and the backup and everything else. But it's really, really impressive to see Microsoft putting that out there as that's what a good standard of service for every dollar of Microsoft. When we look at it, that's really the reason why, we started Augmentt, was really to help, MSPs that were out there selling Microsoft licenses, doing the work to set it up, to configure, to adjust, to assign, not getting paid for it, but just doing it because they were getting margins on the Microsoft license. And we just thought that that was absolutely crazy. I mean, there is so much work to be done to answer all the tickets around user management, all the onboarding and offboarding of people, assigning to groups, working with conditional access, hardening projects, setting the policies, setting the baselines. Like there's just so much work out there. And what we say is that if you're selling Microsoft, which every one of you on this call is, driving a Microsoft services business is a must. And not just building that service business around it, but getting paid for it through project work, getting paid for it as a reoccurring service. It's all there. And, whenever I hear a partner saying, well, we do the work, but we do it for free, or we answer, we charge for the help desk, but the rest of the stuff, we do one-off projects. Everything I tell them is put your customer on a roadmap to paying for this on a journey of how things are going to get more secure. And you always hear about those customers, well, they won't pay for it. What our customers do, what our MSPs do, is they get that customer to sign a letter saying that you, as the MSP, will not be responsible when their account is breached. Just have them sign off on that. Nobody does, right? But it makes them
Yeah.
face the reality that while Microsoft can be secured and while Microsoft can be configured, it is not out of the box. And if they don't believe that, set up a brand new instance and see how long before the phishing emails, before the attacks happen, before the suspicious logins happen. It is an incredibly powerful product, but it is not done out of the box. And if
Yeah.
you're, and the last thing I'll say is if you guys are ever looking for what do other MSPs do it, how much do they charge, what do they use in their stack, talk to any of us because that's all we do all day, every day. We'll give you lots of example. Colin?
It totally is, right? Like, I think it's interesting. So I know some people might look at something like this and say, well, I can't charge, 8x what I pay for Microsoft this isn't the markup, right? This is the actual services on top of it. And you can absolutely build a managed service. Look at the name and of the acronym of this industry and what all of you refer to your businesses as a managed service provider, right? You're not a managed license provider or just a software license provider. It's a managed service, right? You stack things on top and you go back. I'm going to date myself again. You go back to 20 some odd years that the MSP evolution happened, where everyone went from being a VAR and a value added reseller into a managed service provider. And they had these crazy eyed, crazy idea guys like Derek and Gavin doing Enable and really creating this RMM category where you didn't have to roll a truck to a client every day. You didn't have to go and sit in front of the computer desktop every single day and to take care of things. And you stacked services around that. Now you added money to be monitoring their network and servers and everything else. And then you stacked on top to be reporting on trends and performance of all of those systems and uptime and everything. And then, hey, there's the proactive things of, running automated defrags on the disk drives and, clearing out temp files and all of these types of things that you built. And then you went into security policies and GPOs with Active Directory on site and all of these types of things. It's the exact same here. Everybody's buying and using Microsoft, but you've got this opportunity to build this entire service around it. You have SaaS backup stuff, right? Microsoft doesn't back this stuff up offsite. So if somebody deletes their stuff, you better have a third party solution that you're managing backups of those mailboxes, that email, that data. You've got email continuity. Raise your hand if you were affected in the last 6 weeks with a major Microsoft outage. My hands up. I was there,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
My own
yeah.
company. These continuity, right? You have spam, you have phishing, you have all of these things you can wrap around it. But then again, back to that managed service, monitoring it, managing it, configuring, hardening, doing all of these things to make sure it's the number one attack vector these days. M365, right?
Yep.
So look at all of these services you can wrap around Microsoft 365, offer those to your customer for their assurance because they've probably felt all of these pains already. And now you're making that money. Then just make sure you're billing it right.
Yep. And it's funny because I remember, and Colin does also, we're old enough to remember when we started this industry, it was a major, revolution. Everybody was making their money on hardware. It was all about
Yeah.
hardware margin. It was all about the erosion of the margins and what's going to happen to the channel. And people are going direct they're, you can buy a compact laptop direct and what's going to happen. And the
Right.
evolution became who cares? Like, who cares about that piece if we build a service business around it, then we are we protect ourselves against anything that happens there. It's the same thing around this. If you're making money and the bulk of your money around Microsoft is a handful of margins that you're making on those licenses, and that's where it is. That's not the right business. The business is the services piece. Use the licenses as a way to sell the services, and because that's where
Yeah.
all of the profit is, that's where everything is. And I'm amazed. And with Colin, it goes beyond Microsoft. Like, we are obviously a very Microsoft centric, but that applies for everything these guys buy. Every one of those
Yeah.
pieces of software, has a services revenue potential attached to it. So, it's
Yep.
it's it's so important, I think, to look at that from that perspective.
Absolutely.
We'll go to the next slide. So, from our perspective, we only look at the Microsoft piece, and I would say that with Colin, you're getting a much wider lens, but you're also getting a lens that is much more focused around the billing piece. What you're getting from us in the product is licensing visibility. Who's got what licenses by customer? Who's using what licenses? How are they configured? How are they set up? We give you more of the usage aspect of it, and really what's out there and being used. What we don't do is really give you the ability to reconcile it against your bill. We make it slightly easier, but that's where Colin and Gradient come in. They take that to the next level. The licensing report, I believe every one of you have access to it on this call. If you don't have access to it, just reach out to your partner success manager, probably Adam or somebody like that, and tell them that you want access to it. It's a great way to start having a good conversation about what is being used and who's using what. It's also a great conversation to figure out if the right licenses are in use, because as you guys know, no two licenses are built the same, and the value that one brings, potentially you don't get the benefit from that. But the licensing report, I think, is a really good way to start that journey of really
Yeah.
embracing the licensing and looking at it. And Colin, maybe on the
Yeah.
next slide.
Yeah, I mean, I think that license report's amazing, right? You can start to see a lot of the MSPs when it comes to billing, they'll say, I don't think there's been many changes. I don't think there's much that we're missing, anything else. That's a really quick and easy way for you to actually see, because you saw on there, hey, what was the change over the previous period and stuff, right? So, oh, there actually has been changes, right? Start to get some of that insight, and then you can compound and look to add in with what we do on the gradient side with Microsoft. So tough to see all in here, but we give you that full view. You get to see all of the usage. You get to see what the terms are, what the payment frequencies are, what the commitments, what your cost is through your CSP, when the renewals are happening. We'll give you a highlight of on assignments there, but then we'll also automate this reconciliation. So on one hand, we can say, hey, when something is detected, when something's changed on a daily basis, we will update your PSA automatically for you. You want us to increment the count, decrement the count, we'll do that automatically for you. That way, all your proration stuff applies, everything else that way. The other thing that we've got built in is what we call margin protection. So when we're monitoring all of the costs for every license through your CSP of all of these subscriptions, we're able to tell when there's a change. So we don't just show you that change, but you have the ability to set a margin threshold in there. Hey, I want to make sure that I maintain at least 15% or 20% margin. If your price increases from Microsoft grow over time and hit you within that margin, we can now also tell you and say, hey, do you want us to automatically update your resale price to your customers on that? Now, not everybody writes that into their agreements that says, hey, when Microsoft pricing goes up, our pricing goes up, XYZ, whatever else. But if you do, and if you put that stuff, hey, there you go. It's there. But we give you that visibility. We give you that opportunity to stay right on top of it and manage it all automatically. Or if you just want to come in a few times through the month, see all the information, process it, review it, and then have us go and write it, it's still going to save you those 1,000 mouse clicks in ConnectWise or Autotask for finding the contract, finding the line item, finding what it is, doing all those checks, and then editing it. But yeah, it just kind of handles it all easily for you and gives it to you in a way that just makes sense to people that are doing the billing.
That's awesome. Maybe on the next slide. So, a little bit of what I like to say is this is truly a better together story. Again, as CEO of Augmentt, Colin with Gradient, we're always looking for ways to help MSPs either make more money or save money. That's what drives us every day. Like, that's the mission in life. We figure if we do that well, then we'll be successful as a result. We basically, really believe that by using the products together and using this across all the tenants, you'll get that level of visibility. Again, from our perspective, easy way to start is through Microsoft. And then I think you'll be quickly hooked on looking at this for everything. And I'll tell you that if by using these two products, if it doesn't make you money or save money, just let us know because, I've never heard that. Everybody says, I've been able to find this. I've been able to find this saving. I've been able to drive this as a service. And I'll tell you that if you don't see it, we'd love to either pair you up with somebody else that is doing it to figure it out together, or we want the feedback. So super excited about this piece.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're not or you already are, you're just not using a tool like Augmentt to manage the M365. When it comes to the billing of that, I mean, that can be billed separately. It doesn't have to be by Microsoft counts. It can be by, if you charge per site, per group, per whatever, all of that stuff. We pull that in from Augmentt. But yeah, to what Derek said there, I mean, I want to say our average MSP that comes in pays for in the neighborhood of their first 18 months of use of our software within about the first month or two of just finding what they haven't been billing for.
That's awesome. I love that. And if you guys do use it and are seeing those savings, we'd love to hear about it. We'd love to hear the type
Yeah.
of service revenue you're making off of those licenses. You know, and I would say brag. If you are saving a lot and you are making a lot of money, it's a great brag. I'd love to hear it, and we'd love to promote you guys. That's ultimately what we want is just these great MSPs that are just running tight businesses, and anything we can do to
Yeah.
help. That's our goal. All right. And I think, yeah, maybe you talk a little bit about MSP Studio, which I absolutely love, by the way. Great job on this one.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, MSP Studio, free thing for every MSP, thanks to the support of sponsors like Augmentt. Uh, if you're sitting here and you're listening to us talk about putting value add services and managed services around Microsoft and stuff like that, and you say, I don't even know the first thing about how to go to market with that. I don't know how to generate opportunities, sell it, do any of that stuff, hit up mspstudio.com right now. In there, we've got tons of marketing toolkits, full marketing campaigns that you can just download and use. There's ones in there that have to do with M365 in general, M365 backups, productivity suites, managed services. There's everything in there that would allow you to actually go to market without coming up with the content, reinventing the wheel, doing any of that stuff. There's sales advice in there. And then even better yet, there's pricing insights. So Gradient is managing reconciliation for, I mean, it was over a year ago, was over $10 billion in managed services revenue. So we have a whole lot of insights to be able to tell you what are MSPs charging for certain services? What are they paying? What margin? What adoption rates are they seeing? All of that stuff in there, all fully available to you thanks to companies like Augmentt. Yeah, no risk sign up on that, but a free giveaway for you guys.
Yeah, really valuable stuff in there. So from our perspective, if you haven't seen the product, if you're not a customer, we'd love to show you what it looks like. We'd love to walk you through the Augmentt platform. So I would say just go to augmentt.com and just go to free sign up. There's also lots of buttons on our website. If you've looked at us, but it's been a while, things change so rapidly for all of us that it's often just good little refresher. And I promise we won't be hounding you relentlessly after. We'll be good Canadian. We'll be nice and polite.
Right? That's how we do it up north.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. All of that. Already talked about MSP Studio. Jump in there. Super awesome resource. If you liked what you could see, what you heard about the Microsoft reconciliation problem that we're solving, how we go about solving it, you want to learn more, you want to join the early access program, hit up meetgradient.com/MSFP. Trying to keep it short for those keyboard warriors out there, but hit that up, fill out the form, and our team will be in touch to walk you through it and see if it makes sense for you.
That's awesome. All right, so I'm just looking through the chat. It's great to see everybody. Again, super happy that you guys joined us. I don't see any questions yet. Levi, are you seeing questions or maybe I'm looking at the wrong one here?
I don't see anything
Okay.
else. I know there was a quick
All right.
question in the Q&A earlier. I
Okay.
tagged that one by typing, but yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Well, obviously we did a good job, answered everybody's questions. So I'll say that we'll wrap it up and give you guys some time back in the day. I do want to thank everybody for taking the time. I know you guys are incredibly busy, and whenever we do these things, we try to make them as valuable as possible. We don't want to waste your time. There's just no value for any of us to do that. I'd say that if there's other topics that you guys are interested in, and again, it doesn't have to be Microsoft. It could be in anything. Just let us know. We're always trying to look for good, meaningful content delivery. And without anything else, Colin, anything else you want to
Yeah.
add before we chop off?
No, I did see Richard popped in with a quick Q&A. Will this integrate with Autotask? So on the gradient side, yes, we absolutely integrate with Autotask. Augment,
We do too on the PSA side, all the alerts, all of that stuff,
there
direct
you go.
integration. That's a
Yep,
great question. Cool. All right. Well,
there you
listen,
go.
thank you very much for the time, Colin. Always a pleasure. And hopefully
Yeah,
we see each other
likewise.
at some conference soon.
You bet. Sounds good. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.